Hello, Trojan fans. Welcome to another edition of the Peristyle Podcast. I'm your host, Ryan Abraham, joined in studio here in lovely Redondo Beach, California by Mr. Triple Double himself, Connor Morrissette. What's up, Connor? How you doing, man?
Doing well. Happy June, Ryan. It's the summer. This is awesome.
It's June time.
Yes.
June 4th. Yeah, I know. I'm looking at the calendar like, where did the time go? We're like ticking away to July 1st when this whole house settlement thing's supposed to start. We don't have even a deal in place yet, so that's a little crazy. But we have a fun show for you today. I guess we'll talk about that a little. But USC did get some big recruiting news last week. We want to talk about, or was it over the weekend? When was it? It was like maybe.
I think it was Thursday of last week.
Yeah. Big 5-star tight end Mark Bowman out of Mater Dei High School, shutting it down, committing to USC. We're talking about that, some quarterback recruiting. We had some questions that Connor and Chris were posing on the Peristyle, so we'll address a few of those, including which game we're looking forward to the most, comparing the wide receiver room from this year to last year, a bunch of stuff we're going to get to in the show. If you have any questions or comments for us, you can email us, podcast@uscfootball.com. We haven't got a lot of emails for this show. We got a couple, but send us your emails. Let us know, hey, the Ryan Connor Show, here's what we want you guys to talk about. We'd love to hear from you. You can also call or text us at 424-254-9141. And if you have the Apple Podcasting app or Spotify, however you listen to the podcast, if they have the ability to leave the Peristyle Podcast a 5-star rating, we'd love that. And we know on Apple you can leave a review. And we did get a new one, Connor. 5 stars.
Excellent.
JB class of 8082. He says, play Notre Dame or not. Love you guys. Should the Notre Dame series continue? Almost everyone is looking as if USC and Lincoln Riley are trying to duck Notre Dame. Sorry, but SC wanted to move the series to early in the season. That's not ducking. Here's a thought. Last season we won. Here's a thought. Last season, who won the Big Ten? Oregon. Yet Oregon didn't win the playoffs. Could that have been related to having to travel east to Michigan and Wisconsin in November and playing UW and Penn State later in the season?
Want me to answer that right away?
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, sorry.
Maybe, but I don't feel bad that they had to travel. I think they just ran into a buzzsaw Ohio State team in the Rose Bowl who was pissed and changed their whole offensive strategy. Oregon wasn't expecting it, and I don't know how much traveling earlier in the year really hurt them. Ohio State, I don't think they had to come, or they came to Oregon, so they came to the West Coast once. They looked pretty good when they had a big travel game earlier in the year as well that they ended up losing. So I don't really buy into that a ton.
No, I think the seating was all messed up. They've fixed it or should make it better this year. Oregon, and unfortunately, if you ran into Ohio State, like that's a buzzsaw. Like Oregon didn't get done any favors by getting a bye, and then, well, you get to play Ohio State. Like, okay, well, that was going to be no bueno. By the time they got rolling, when Chip Kelly started going, hey, we're going to throw to these really great receivers we have. Oh, yeah. Then they started mowing people over. But, yes, we both think the series should continue. We both think it will. There's a wrench being thrown at all this because one of the things we felt like if automatic qualifiers were in, the Notre Dame game was in. Automatic qualifiers are not looking, they're not the favorite anymore. So we'll have to see what happens. We'll talk about that stuff a little bit later. I want to talk about Trader Joe's though, too. Oh my God, Connor! Like I went in there. I think I was there yesterday, but last week I go in. So I go into TraderJoe's.com. I see, and I'm a big meatball sub guy, and grinder is what you call it from homemade Angus beef meatballs. And if you go to TraderJoe's.com, the picture has a bunch of meatball subs with like cheese and sauce and everything. And man, did they look good. So what did I do? I sent myself a picture. I should have put it up there, but I didn't bring the picture if you're watching us. We are live on YouTube and Facebook, by the way. So if you're in there, put us your put comments in there or questions. We'd love to answer them or put your comments up on the screen. But man, they were so good. I used some of the Trader Joe's marinara sauce, and so they were like homemade meatballs. They're not frozen, and I actually did them in the air fryer, and that was good. I think it was about 15 minutes at like 400, and the meatballs came out like super juicy. And I got some of these like sandwich rolls from Trader Joe's. The first time I cut it down the middle and then they split apart. The second time I kind of dug out like a, because they were kind of wide, I dug out like a middle part and put the meatballs in there, and it was really freaking good. And some of the, I think it was pepper jack cheese I got from Trader Joe's. So made like the little meatball sub or grinder or whatever you like to say. Did you call them grinders when you were in high school or whatever? Like,
I think my dad calls them those.
Yeah, it was like old. That's an older term or whatever. Yeah.
But you're making me hungry with all those meatballs.
It was very good. Like so it's like in the meat. So you buy the meatballs and they're just raw meatballs. So a lot of times I get the frozen ones a lot, but these, and the air fryer worked great. You can do them in the oven and stuff too. But man, they're really good. So make sure you go check those out. But I had to put that in. I'm like, oh my god, these meatballs are amazeballs. So I like that. There's another real quick thing too I want to tell you about, like this for Olive Crest, great charity. Matt Leinart is the honorary chair for this Top Golf event coming up on Thursday, June 12th. House of Victory is providing a few USC players. If you want to get involved in that, email me, Ryan@uscfootball.com. If you want to it's a buy one, get one free thing. So if you sign up, you can bring a friend. But if you're a USC fan and you want to do that and get into a bay, email me when you sign up, and I will have them put you with one of the USC football players coming into the game. So I just want to let people know about that. There's a QR code up on the screen if you want to go check it out. But I have something posted on uscfootball.com as well, and I'll tweet it out. But there'll be former players there, USC players and everything. But it's June 12th at Topgolf, 6:30 to 9:30. But yeah, you can check with me. Email me if you want more information on that. But should be a fun event.
Looks like a great time with Matt Leinart, and I hear there might be some prizes if you want to bid. So seems like a great time.
Shout out to USC. They're donating some really cool ticket package. I'm not sure how Olive Crest is going to use the prize yet, but there's like sideline passes and tailgates and the 1923 club for the Michigan State game. So some really cool stuff. Thanks to USC for donating that. House of Victory donated the tailgate stuff, and over in the athletic department, they hooked us up with some tickets for this charity event. So that was pretty cool. So we got some chat stuff going. If you're watching live on Facebook or YouTube, thank you so much. We appreciate that. Alan, talking about the Notre Dame game, put a comment in there. Let's not be obsessed with Notre Dame. Big Ten games are much more important now. There's some fans that are just like, hey, but there's a lot of people that are just like, look, part of my being a college football fan is because USC Notre Dame, that's like a non-starter for me. Like, you got to keep playing that game. And I think they might move it earlier in the season. I think that Notre Dame doesn't want to do it. But there's a lot of sort of negotiations and stuff going on. It'll be interesting.
Well, the funny thing with this whole ordeal is, in the court of public opinion, everyone thinks USC is ducking the game when USC offered Notre Dame a 1-year deal to extend it into 2026, and that wasn't exactly what they wanted.
Right.
And so they declined it. So, again, we talked about this 2 weeks ago. Who is ducking who when it might not be an ideal thing, but just as a show of good faith, just to keep things going, like with so much uncertainty in college football, Notre Dame could easily just say, hey, we'll accept that 2026 game. It was going to be in the Coliseum in November, that it wasn't going to be any funky scheduling or anything. This was just a 1-year continuation of what they've always done, and Notre Dame said no. So I just want to remind people of that.
Yeah.
It doesn't seem like a lot of people understand that, and that's a big part of the equation here.
Yeah, and we had another comment from Steve. So many elements of college football have gone away. I really like rivalries for that. I'm in favor of keeping USC
South Bend Community College
game. Wow, little shots fired there. Like taking. And maybe we'll talk about this first before we get into like the recruiting stuff.
Sure.
It's so if you watch the SEC meetings that were going on down in Florida, there was a shift. It seemed like the two big powers, the SEC and the Big Ten, and the SEC is out there. Like Big Ten, SEC media days, or not media days, like those meetings down there. You heard from all the head coaches. You heard from the commissioner like twice. The Big Ten, meetings were at Terranea, just like down the street. Like we can see it from here, basically. Nothing, no media, no like statements, nothing came out of it. So like the Big Ten and the SEC were like very different, where the Big Ten was all quiet and the SEC was just like talking up the storm. Everyone assumed that they were both going with the AQ, the automatic qualifier, caveat, and they're the ones that are going to control the playoffs. So it's basically those two conferences agree. There's not much anyone else can do. Well, now they're not agreeing. The Big Ten definitely wants the automatic qualifiers, and it suits the Big Ten well. Like the Big Ten got 4 in this past season, but they, and Illinois was there for a 5th potential, but there was kind of a drop off where the SEC had like 3 and then like a bunch of good like candidates that were just out on the outside. And in a 16, like without automatic qualifiers, all those teams are probably getting in. The SEC probably a little deeper in the middle, and I think they would benefit more from not having automatic qualifiers, where the Big Ten's like, hey, we want our 4, and if we have a good enough 5th or 6th team, that's fine. And it seemed like there was pushback within the meetings of some of the power programs in the SEC. So the Big Ten thought, hey, we have our partner for the dance. Everyone wants automatic qualifiers. We'll just push it through. Now the SEC is not necessarily doing that. And the Big Ten is like, well, hey, the systems for the SEC has been gamed all this time. You have that weekend in November that you guys all play Citadel and crap like that. You should play 9 conference games like we do. And I think that's going to be sort of the sticking point now, where I think the Big Ten would probably go along with the 5-11 model, which is 5, champions, and then 11 just like, the highest ranked teams are the ones that are selected. They just don't want the SEC to have the 4 out-of-conference games and all these extra wins built in. That's 9 more losses if you do 9 conference games. So that's more, more losses spread around the conference. So I think that's where the sort of sticking point is now. And the Notre Dame game is kind of tied into that, because if there were automatic qualifiers, that would mean, hey, all you have to do is be in the top 4 of the Big Ten. If you lose to Notre Dame, it's not going to knock you out of the playoff. Without automatic qualifiers, now it makes things a little bit more complicated. But so that's sort of where I'm seeing things right now. Do you agree with that, or any other insights?
That's why I'm nervous the game's going to go away, because I think right now the momentum is the SEC will play the 9 games and then it'll go to 5-11. And I think 5-11's best. While the SEC and Big Ten are clearly the 2 best conferences, them getting 4 automatic teams every year without having to do anything, when they both killed college football as we know it, let's be honest about it. The fact that USC, UCLA, Oregon, Washington are in the Big Ten, Texas, Oklahoma are in the SEC, it's like, you guys did that, and now everyone else had to suffer, and now you want to be rewarded for killing everyone else. Like, no. If you do 5-11, you're still going to get a bunch of teams in, and it'll be fine. But I understand why, if you're like a Clemson fan, or if you're a Florida State fan, or an Arizona fan, why you'd be like, no, screw you. You're the reason that these leagues aren't as competitive as they used to be. Why the heck are we just going to give you 4 automatic bids? And if you do 5-11, then it'll be 1 automatic bid. The Big Ten, SEC will still get a bunch of teams in, I would imagine, but that gives those other conferences a little bit more of a fair shot, which I think is important. So I like that. It is imperative that the SEC goes to 9 conference games, though. I hope they get to that point. That doesn't mean the very good things for the Notre Dame rivalry, I'm afraid, but if I could pick like what to do, I'd probably value the Notre Dame rivalry the most, but it just doesn't seem like those automatic qualifiers are happening. So throwing that into the mix, I like the 5-11 model the best. I think that is the one that makes the most sense, and I wish that didn't affect the Notre Dame rivalry negatively, but I think it does.
It does, but I think they're still going to have it. There's a lot of people that I know. SoCal 2223 said he's in the minority, he thinks, but he thinks the rivalry should continue. You're not in the minority. Most people want that, and I think USC.
Look at the Peristyle. It's split.
Is it split?
It's split. There's a lot of people who don't want it because it will hurt USC, which I understand, and because they feel like Notre Dame is being really stubborn, which they are, but
yeah,
like just play the game is what I think. I really loved that game. Growing up in Massachusetts, no connection to either school, I would always go out of my way to watch that game, so that's kind of a big reason why I fell in love with college football, and I don't want that game to go away. But like, if it does, it's not like, oh, they screwed up so bad. How could they do this? Like, you understand why they would get rid of it, though,
yeah,
which is frustrating. But that's sort of the reality of it all.
Yeah, it's weird, and with the Big Ten, I think a lot of it. Tony Petitti coming from
I agree with the comment. Sorry to.
Oh, what was the comment?
If you can't be into the top 16 without, if you got to get rid of Notre Dame to be in the top 16, then you suck. I agree.
No, yeah, I think you're right. Like USC hasn't made a playoff yet. I don't want to get rid of like one of the most important things on USC's schedule because of the playoff, where you haven't even made it once, and it's been around a really long time. But the Big Ten, I think a lot of the automatic qualifier part, it's not just, hey, we get 4 teams in, but then it becomes like a TV product because you can have, whoever in the standings, 3 play 6 and 4 play 5, and it's like an extra round of like championship games that you can sell and put on TV, and then the winner of those games make it to the playoff. Like you make this automatic thing, so it's more of like a product for television, and I think those games would be cool. Like if you had something like that, like, oh, who finished third, who finished sixth, they're going to play each other, and the winner goes to the playoff. Like I see value in that, but it just seems like that's like a TV executive making decisions like we want more great games, and they're sort of manufacturing that.
And then if the SEC and Big Ten do that alliance and they play a game against each other every year and they have 9 conference games, then unless Notre Dame is an SEC team in that instance, they're not obviously going to be an SEC team, but the SEC has 16, Big Ten has 18, so someone would get left out. They'd need to bring in a different team to make that work. If that doesn't happen, then the rivalry's for sure gone. You play 9 Big Ten games, and then you throw in an SEC opponent to get to 10.
And then you have to play Notre Dame.
Yeah, so then you have one tune-up game. I love college football. I love competitive games, but even I understand why that would be really hard to manage. And, look at South Carolina and Clemson. South Carolina specifically, if they have to play a Big Ten team, 9 SEC games, and Clemson, they're in the same spot. It's not an enviable position, which I understand.
Yeah, I would love to see the SEC go to 9 because I do feel like it's a way to game the system.
Totally agree.
I think it needs, if you're going to have this selection where there's 11, teams getting selected for this playoff, like you need the scheduling to be on a more even ground. And Sankey was definitely, he did a big PowerPoint presentation about how it's so much harder in the SEC, and almost like, hey, we don't really need 9, but you do. Like you need to have that 9th game. It makes a difference. It's an extra road game every other year. Like so many of the SEC teams just play at home all the time, and this is, I think this is an important step. So we'll see what ends up happening. My sort of guess is it goes to like 5-11, and that 5-11 model, and the SEC does go to 9 games. But I don't know. We'll see.
The middle of the SEC last year definitely was better than the middle of the Big Ten.
But the top of the Big Ten was better.
Exactly. Totally with you on that. So does that mean it was harder to win in the SEC? Maybe a little bit. But at the end of the day, the SEC just had a down year last season, and that seems to get lost in the shuffle. They're like, we had all this attrition in the conference, and that's why we got screwed. Well, even your best teams didn't end up really doing all that much last year. So you can't take too much away from a one-year sample, but I like Brett Bielema kind of giving it to the SEC people when he tweeted out, now that we have the transfer portal and everything's a little bit more even with the roster building, you can't just stack 5-star guys on top of 5-star guys. If those guys aren't playing, they're going to leave. We've seen things get a little bit more even, and I'd need to dig deeper into the numbers, but that makes sense to me. There's a reason why the Big Ten has been able to close the gap with the SEC at the top, and the middle of that SEC is still a little bit better than the middle of the Big Ten. But again, with this transfer portal, with everything that's happening in college football, the SEC, you can't stack the recruiting classes that they used to stack, and we're seeing the dividends pay off with that.
Yeah, and I think NIL was in the SEC
that's a
lot.
whole
Yeah,
piece of that too.
Now everyone can pay, and it's like, oh, it's a little bit.
I mean, look at Oregon recruiting right now. Now everyone can pay, and they're getting their ass kicked. It's remarkable. I ask USC again, why weren't you doing this earlier?
Yeah. And I think the SEC, if I'm not mistaken, I think there's only like 5 returning starting quarterbacks in the SEC out of like 16 teams. So SC Neal says, yeah, SEC was down 2 years in a row. Yeah. I mean, obviously, a lot of really great teams. Maybe not great teams. Like there was really good teams, but, Georgia, were they the best? Like Notre Dame handled them pretty good. Texas looked really good, and Georgia beat them twice, So there's yeah, it'll be interesting to see, but I feel like you need to level the scheduling as far as you can't have 8 conference games. You're 16 teams in the conference. Like you have to have more conference games just so everyone can touch it. There's like, it's like you're in the same house, but it's a mansion, and like you don't even see somebody that's like in a different wing. It's like, oh, it's like, Oklahoma comes in and maybe they've never even seen Georgia for like 5 years. Like, oh, like, yeah, we're in the same conference, but we're not going to play them forever or whatever.
That's happening in the Big Ten too, where USC now second year in the Big Ten, still no Ohio State game. I want that Ohio State game.
We got to see that one, yeah. Okay, so we kind of talk about that, and with the, and we mentioned this a bunch of times. The House settlement is really supposed to start on July 1st, which is a major shift in how college athletics works, where schools will be paying players directly. All that stuff that we had talked about before. It is still not the settlement still hasn't been approved. We're waiting on that judge. I think there might be some, short-sightedness from the NCAA university sides where they were told by the judge, hey, we want to retroactively put these roster limits into place so you don't kick players off that are on teams right now, even though a bunch of schools already did that before the settlement was even approved. And they didn't do that. Like they basically did not do what the judge said they should do. They said, well, there'll be like up to the schools if they want to do that. And that's my guess is that's what's holding this up. But it's really hard to change this major shift in how you do business. And we're less than a month out. So I know athletic directors are like, what the hell are we going to do? A lot of people already started implementing this stuff. They're ready to pay the players starting next month. And if this doesn't get finalized, then I guess it can't. So this is really weird that this is coming down to the last sort of minute. But here we are, the craziness of college athletics.
What happens if it doesn't get okayed? What do you think happens? Who knows? I
think you keep doing what you're doing, where like collectives are paying the players. If they were promised, everyone budgeted, all the athletic departments budgeted it's like $20.5 million. There's scholarships that were going to be added. There's all this stuff like, baseball, you go from like 11.7 scholarships to you could have up to like 35 or whatever it was.
Yeah. How about USC football taking a huge 2026 class? If this doesn't
if
get settled like a year from now, they're going to have all these guys. Wouldn't they be over 85?
I would think so. Yeah. There's a lot of weird ramifications to this. I assume as we get closer, I mean, I don't know you can't get much closer than 28 days or whatever it is. I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen.
I don't want to talk politics, but it's a little bit like the government where you just keep kicking the can down the road with like the national debt, and it just keeps getting worse and worse and worse. We need some people here to fix this problem. It's not the NCAA, but someone needs to be in charge of this and make some decisions, but I don't think that's going to happen. I'm just nervous that eventually as more changes happen little by little, we could be getting away from what makes the sport so great. So I hope that doesn't end up happening, but we'll see. I'm just nervous for the future of college football.
I know. It's just weird.
We talk about it every week. It's not like I'm here like, I could fix it, because I don't know what the fix is. It's very tough.
Like we kind of depend on this, so we'll see.
Yeah.
Gixxer Squid just got back from the Dominican Republic, witnessed a local wearing a Reggie Bush jersey. Made my day. That's very cool.
Love it.
And then, and over on Facebook, Daryl says, "Fight on, Ryan." Thank you. Not to you, Connor, but thanks for the Facebook. Yeah, so if you're live on Facebook or YouTube, thank you for watching live, and put comments or questions in there. We'd love to get to them. One of the big deals, USC out on the recruiting trail, took a little hit. They had one 5-star decommit, get a 5-star back a couple weeks later. Mark Bowman, the big tight end, 1 or 2, I think the number 3 player in California, 247 has. Obviously a very highly ranked individual. To get a player like that, especially from modern day where things sort of dropped off some of the local recruiting. Obviously they're hitting local recruiting much harder now, and getting a 5-star from down the street is a lot easier to keep committed than one from Georgia. So it was a really big deal. I know the composite 2-star recruits went into a lot of detail about that. If you want to listen, they just posted an episode on Wednesday morning early. But I wanted to get your thoughts, Connor, on this latest big commitment.
very impressive. I said Bowman committed Thursday. I think he publicly committed Friday, but he told 24/7 Sports' Tom Lloyd that he had been a silent commit. He'd committed behind the scenes 4 days before that. So last week USC put in the work, and they ended up getting a commitment from Mark Bowman, who, if you trust the opinion of Greg Biggins, the longtime scout with 24/7 Sports, both of our friend, he thinks Bowman is the best tight end he's ever seen in his 20-plus years of doing this. Tremendous blocker, tremendous receiver, tremendous work ethic, tremendous strength, a guy who can do it all, who Greg described as, at Mater Dei, who's always open, and he never pouts when he doesn't get the ball because they have an embarrassment of riches over there, so he can't get the ball every time. But this is a guy who can come in, and even though he reclassified, potentially play right away. I see a lot of people say, oh, USC doesn't use the tight end, USC doesn't use the tight end. They haven't had a tight end anywhere near as good as Bowman in the Lincoln Riley era, so I do expect that to change. Remember, Riley coached Mark Andrews, a long time ago at Oklahoma, who went on to, even though he had that drop last year for the Ravens, he was a phenomenal tight end, is a phenomenal tight end. So it's not like Lincoln Riley's never had really good tight ends. This is a big win for USC's NIL approach because Texas and Georgia were the other teams who were involved with Bowman. So getting that over the line is huge. Make no mistake, this is another expensive commitment. USC has a bunch of those going right now. So it's just really impressive. That's the word I keep coming back to, Ryan, where Chad Bowden comes in, and USC had gotten off to a pretty good start in the 2026 class, but ever since Bowden's been here, yes, Xavier Griffin decommitted, but that really is a footnote right now because USC is just doing so well in their recruiting trail in 2026, and there could be some more decommitments here or there, but this is going to be a really good class when it's all said and done in December, and Bowman's going to be a big part of it.
No, I agree with you. And you get the feeling like, could he be like a Brock Bowers kind of guy?
That's the comp.
With, a California kid ends up going to Georgia. He's like, man, and now you can't let those kids get away. And if you're a USC football fan, you probably are watching or listening to the show. It's just night and day the way they are recruiting locally this year versus last year. And I think the organization, having a general manager, having a completely revamped personnel staff, recruiting has changed, and I think you can still use a lot of the inherent advantages that a USC has, but you had to pair it with not only resources, but just the wherewithal, how to utilize those resources. I felt like resources were good last year, not good at utilizing them. This year, they have the resources still, and they're doing a great job putting the resources in the right place, getting the right people committed, going after the right people, recruiting them at the proper levels, having assistant coaches like Chad Savage, who are just relentless in Southern California. And, I mean, it's a shift in philosophy where, and I think, Lincoln Riley even talked about, they needed to focus on high school recruiting more that second year. They were still portal, a little portal heavy. Now they're going to minor in the portal and major in high school recruiting, and not just high school recruiting, but local. So I think it helped to have Chad Bowden, his new staff, those organizational skills, working with the head coach, working with the assistant coaches. And these are the kind of results you can get where you're utilizing all those advantages you have of being USC, making sure you have the proper resources and, through House of Victory and the athletic department, raising a lot of money, and then, utilizing those resources in the right way. And I think this is what the results you're seeing. If you're looking at behind the scenes, I think it's just much better. It's just so much more well-run of a recruiting organization than what we've seen in the past few years, because things had changed, things had shifted, and it's different than, recruiting is different than it was just a few years ago. And Lincoln Riley came in with a rebuilding project. I think it worked well with the portal in that first year, and then it was kind of clunky after that. This is really building for the future, and if you can, it's hard to stack top 5 classes now with the way everything is going, but I think USC has a good chance of that, just having all this talent in their backyard. If they keep, having the funds to be able to, compensate these guys, recruit the hell out of them, recruit really hard, like Oregon was doing. They were recruiting. It's not just that they were spending money; they were recruiting really hard. USC's now recruiting as hard as Oregon is, and they have the resources, but they have some of those advantages. Like, hey, it's here instead of, if you're like Chad Savage talked about it, like, hey, I recruit the hell out of these Southern California guys, but I also have to bring them to Colorado, and like now they just can drive, and so it's good to see USC using all those advantages, utilizing the new tool set that you need to recruit in this world, and you're seeing the results.
It's night and day. I think the low point of the USC recruiting era under Lincoln Riley is probably signing day 2024 it was in 2023, but it was for the 2024 class, so December 2023. You get Cameron Fountain in, you get Marcellus Williams in, you get Desmond Stevens in, you get Jade Abasiri in, Jaden Walker. There's some nice pieces in that class, but like then a year goes by and Eric Henderson is in the fold and he lands Jakeem Stewart and things start to get a little bit better where, okay, this is a legitimate defensive line coach, a guy who is from the NFL, who Danton Lynn has connected with, who is a very good recruiter in his own right, and that sort of started to flip the script a little bit. And then now this recruiting cycle in 2026, Chad Bowden's in the fold, and he brings in a new personnel staff, and USC's number one in the recruiting rankings, and they get the 5-star offensive tackle, and Kenai Pepe breaking like a decade-long drought, and Mark Bowman commits, and a bunch of local guys commit. There's a clear plan, and the NIL is in a good spot, and just the coaches are relentless on the recruiting trail. So much needs to go right for your plan to work. I'm sure back in December of 2023, USC had a plan as well, but clearly it was not working. And just credit to Lincoln Riley, credit to Jen Cohen. Changes were made, adjustments were made, and now USC is reaping the rewards of those changes as we see in the 2026 class with all of these commitments. So I agree with everything you said, Ryan, and just to try to provide a little background on that, and just like remember how frustrated fans were during signing day, like December 2023, when the season went to crap with Caleb Williams after the high expectations and they signed the number 20 class in the country. It's like, oh man, stuff needs to change. Well, a couple of years later, things are a lot better. So
yeah, things have changed for sure.
USC deserves credit for that.
S.E. Neal, is he as good as number 44 on Penn State? LOL. Tyler Warren. I don't know if anybody's that good right now. We'll see, but I mean, he's got potential.
Yeah, I don't think Tyler Warren was that highly ranked as a recruit, but
yeah,
he projects to be that impact guy. The comp is Brock Bowers, so hopefully he can turn into that. I get a little nervous when you hear the perfect prospect, but hopefully for Bowman, he is the perfect prospect, and things go great at USC.
Jeff, I go all the way back to Fred Davis as our last tight end we really used. We had some decent ones between Pete Carroll and now, but never utilized.
You'd be a better expert in the history of the tight end position at USC than I am. But
yeah, they've had some. I mean, like Fred Davis was a definitely good one. Like Sonny Bird was like, I'm not Sonny Bird. What am I? Mount Brank. Oh, crap. I'm going to blank on his name. But anyway, there's been a few. Sonny Bird was the tailback. Dominique Bird was the one I was talking about. But yeah, they've had a few. What was it? Bryn Cameron's brother. Was it Jordan Cameron? Like he was not well utilized at USC and ended up he was like all pro for 1 year in the NFL. You're like, oh, we used to watch him in the summer workouts and he could just catch rebounds in the red zone and just haul in touchdowns. And we're like, in the offseason workouts, we'd see that. I'm like, you should probably do that. And they didn't really use that. But then he ended up going, I think he went to Cleveland or something, had like one all-pro season. Like, okay. Jeff, yeah, Dominique. So cool. All right. Also on the recruiting side, it seems to be a little bit of a shift for quarterback recruiting 2027-ish, but I don't know if you want to let people know what's going on there.
Sure. So Ryder Lyons is the 2026 5-star quarterback who's taking a Mormon mission and is really more like a 2027 because of that mission. And USC's done this with guys like Van Spafford, where they put the full court press on a guy, but he doesn't either flip or, in Spafford's case, because he's committed to Georgia, or just commit like Ryder Lyons. He's not committed anywhere, and they move on. And I think USC, they did all they could, they feel like, with Lyons, and so they're moving on to Peyton Houston in the 2027 class. He's a kid from Louisiana who is a dual-threat quarterback, 5'11". I had a chance to talk to his dad this week. We're going to have an interview at uscfootball.com come out hopefully soon. It's ready whenever it's gonna hit publish. He comes from a great family, and USC has pivoted, and I think it's another sign of growth where, like, who's to say if these quarterbacks are going to be any good, but it's a lot better than having a top priority for the whole cycle and then stuff goes south at the end. Like, I think it's a sign of growth when you move off of a target who you gave it all you had. He's not interested, then you go get someone else. I think that's a really good move. You want guys who are bought in. Clearly, that's been the MO of Chad Bowden, and doesn't look like Lyons is bought in totally with USC, despite his brother being on the team. So they're moving on to Peyton Houston.
Yeah, so we'll see kind of what happens there in that development. But yeah, Peyton Houston, class of 2027 quarterback. But just a little kind of nugget that was going on this week. Also, I got a bunch of emails, but from the National Football Foundation and College Football Hall of Fame ballot, a few Trojans are going to be on this ballot. I think they like 15 or 16 get in every year, but there's a lot of really impressive names if you look at everybody. But Jeff Bregel, offensive lineman from the mid-'80s for USC. I think he was like a 2-time All-American, but he's a captain. He's actually from here, Redondo Beach, which is funny. And then a couple of safeties, Mark Carrier, who was there in the late 80s, Thorpe Award winner, and Taylor Mays, one of the 3-time All-Americans at USC. Like, they're on the ballot.
Taylor May is your guy, Ryan, your friend.
Taylor's great. He used to sit, he sat in that chair many times. He used to be in here. So yeah, he's up at Washington now. I know someone on the Peristyle was like, oh, he's not around USC anymore. Yeah, he was. He got a full-time coaching position up at Washington. So awesome. So that's cool. So congrats to them. We'll see who ends up being in there. We got a comment from Steve. I'm going to throw this up on the screen. My wife never heard the show before. She heard your Trader Joe's bit about meatball subs, and now she's craving that. I guess it really does work.
You did a great job explaining it. I won't lie to you.
Like when I see sweets, I go to the website usually to see like if I bought something new that I could talk about when I go to Trader Joe's, I'll do that. But sometimes I just go to the website and look what recipes they have or whatever. But when I see like sweets, like they took some of those. I had to go buy a sheet cake because I saw the sheet cakes and they cut them and like layered them and stuff. Like I love layered cake. Like any sweets like gets me. But the damn meatball sub, I was like, holy crap, I need to get that. So, and I totally bought it. And USC coupon, hit the smash and like button. Yeah, it's free if you want to subscribe to our YouTube channel. If you want to do like our Facebook page, go over to uscfootball.com, sign up. We're doing a 60% off deal, VIP membership. So go check that out at uscfootball.com. But yeah, however you want to keep in touch with us, we keep doing these all off season. So if you want to be the most informed USC fan around, we're the way to get that done. Why don't we do this? Let's take a quick break. We got some questions we want to get to. And if you're watching on YouTube, it really won't be that quick of a break. It'll be very quick of a break. But if you're listening on the podcast, yeah, we got to take a little break, pay some bills, and we'll be back in a minute. All right, we're back here on the Peristyle Podcast. It's great to see and hear from all of you out there in Peristyle Podcast land. I know you guys did some Q&As over on the P, you and Chris, and there's a few questions that I wanted to put up there. And the first one is that you guys were posed. Do you see Lane Lemon, Strand, Williams / Jordan wide receiver group being as good, worse, or better than last year's Lane, Lemon, Branch, and Deuce group?
I wouldn't be surprised if at the end of the year we add up all the receiving yards and touchdowns and Branch and Deuce have good years at their schools, and maybe it looks like USC made a mistake allowing those guys to leave, but I just think it's so important to have that clear hierarchy in the receiver room. Last season it was all, let's just throw a bunch at the wall and see what sticks with all this talent from the high school ranks, and it never really ended up working out. And there's a ton of other reasons why that occurred too, of course. But like, I think this year's receiving group is going to be better for USC, where Lane and Lemon are clearly the guys, and then there's an opportunity for Prince John and Zacharias Williams to work in and be key pieces as well. And if they end up being really good, then that's great. But if they're the secondary options, that's why they're there. Maybe DJ Jordan is in that group as well, one of the true freshmen. Whereas last year, there wasn't that hierarchy. There were just a bunch of pretty good to potentially great guys, and Lane and Lemon made the most of their opportunities for the most part, but it didn't really click with a bunch of the other players. And I think going in and having that established, okay, you're the 1A or 1B, however you want to call it, and then other guys have opportunities to be the second or third receiver, and everyone just knows their role. I think that was missing last season, and so this receiving group for USC, I think, has a chance to be better than last year as a whole because the roles are defined, and that was just missing a year ago.
No, I agree with you there, and I think just and we've heard good things out of Georgia. We've heard good things out of Florida State on Deuce Robinson and Zachariah Branch, but there was something off, especially with Branch, and I like him a lot. He's just a great kid, but they weren't, he wasn't able to get separation downfield. I didn't think Deuce Robinson played as big as his body was. There's just something that was missing, and I don't know what it was. And like I said, I hope they have great seasons where they're going, but I have a feeling that this group is going to have a little bit more production because you're probably not going to be relying on those guys where you looked at Zachariah Branch as a number one, or you looked at Deuce Robinson as a number one. Now you have a clear, like you said, there's clear, top two guys, and everyone else can kind of contribute behind that. Where before, I think you were like, hey, you were looking at Branch potentially being a top guy, and just wasn't. It was really hard to get him the ball, and it just didn't work. So I think it takes away from some of that where you're trying to get the ball to guys that aren't, like, they seem like they should be alphas, but for whatever reason, it just wasn't working on the field like they were alphas. And I think Lane and Lemon, you're going to get alpha production from, and then you're going to get, like, the Robin to your Batmans from the other guys. And so, yeah, I agree with you. I think it's going to be better.
Me too. And last season, not that you ever want injuries to happen, but I feel like last season they were better equipped if there was an injury. And then this year, if Lane or Lemon goes down, we'll see how well equipped they are to deal with injuries. There was just more depth last season, but then what did that equal? It didn't equal a great passing game. It just meant they had some pretty good receivers in the room, and for whatever reason, they couldn't reach their ceiling. So this year, if there are injuries, that I don't think will be as good as last season, where you could probably overcome an injury or two, but we'll see. Potentially, Strawn and Zacharias Williams could be pretty good in their own right, so we'll see what happens.
Number 2, is there one player that hasn't gotten a bunch of press that you think will surprise us by having a great year?
Do you have an answer?
I kind of went around a little bit, but
that's hard because a lot of guys have gotten press.
A lot of guys have got press. I was thinking, and I was talking to Gerard about this too, but like maybe Brian Jackson, because people have said so many good things about Wayman Jordan. We got to interview Eli Sanders, and like he looks like a real passing threat and stuff. And Brian Jackson, who there's a lot of potential there, just sort of has been kind of like an afterthought, and he might end up having like a really big role in this offense. So I'll go with him. I don't know if you had anybody in particular. You
stole mine.
Really?
That he was mine.
Oh.
I agree for all the reasons you said. He had a good bowl game, and that running back position, man, those guys take a lot of hits. So if someone does go down, Jackson's a backup that you can feel pretty good about. And as the season goes on, I wouldn't be surprised if later in the year he's playing some kind of role. So he went through my head. I wrote a story about Jaden Walker, so I'm a reason why he's getting publicity, but I think he's someone who maybe isn't getting a ton, but is in that mix too. The linebacker. Zacharias Williams is so new to USC, so I don't know if saying him here makes a lot of sense, but I could see him having a really good year. He was described by Kyle Whittingham as being Utah's wide receiver 1 before he transferred to USC. USC offered him really late in the process out of high school. I watched him a bunch in high school. Really talented receiver. He was probably the best receiver in California in that 2024 class. He was a 2024
24,
kid.
I think, yeah.
So sky is the limit for him as well. We'll see. So those guys come to mind when people ask that question.
And then third one, which game are you most looking forward to covering, be it home or away, and any specific opposing players or coaches you want to see in action?
For the game, I'm looking forward to going out to Nebraska to see that campus and see that stadium. I think that'll be really cool. If I hadn't been to Notre Dame before, that would probably be the answer. I enjoy that road trip, just going on that campus, that stadium, all the history. That's really cool to see. But in terms of new games, new opponents, Nebraska for me.
Yeah, that's a good one. Any players or?
And then players, when we answered this on the Peristyle, if Bryce Underwood wins the quarterback job at Michigan,
he was the one I came up with too.
He'll be fun to watch. But according to the Michigan 24/7 site, they have Mikey Keene, the transfer from Fresno State, as the starting quarterback right now. So by the time Michigan plays USC, will that be the same? We'll see. So he might not be playing. And then Kingston Viliamuasa was, I think, probably the best defensive player I watched in high school. Mason Graham is up there too. Just got drafted by the Browns in the top 10 of the NFL draft. He was really good. There's some other guys here in Southern California who were exceptional, but Kingston Viliamuasa always really stood out, and he's at Notre Dame. He's always fun to watch in the middle of that defense.
Yeah, like last year there was a lot of great trips for me. Like, you know, the Minnesota game, I had like one of my best friends from college was there. It was almost like a mini college reunion. Maryland, my sister lives driving distance. You know, I got to go and see her. I've never been to the Big House. So there was like better like road trips for me. This year it's, you know, Purdue, Illinois. I haven't been either of those places, but still it's like, you know, I don't know how appealing that is. Yeah, I've been to Notre Dame a bunch, obviously. I think that'll be good. I've been to Nebraska when USC went there in the mid 2000s. So it's tough, you know, and the Michigan game is going to be cool, you know, in the Coliseum and stuff. So I'm not sure like which game I'm sort of like, I had more like, you know, circled games last season than this one. And, you know, I've been up to Oregon a bunch of times, but that could be a really good one. It might be the Notre Dame one. Like they haven't got a win there in a while, right? It's been tough sledding. Like I think that would be, you know, we talked last week. I felt like the Nebraska game is sort of like the barometer, but I think, you know, maybe if Notre Dame's not like a national championship contender, like they were in the game last year and, you know, gave Ohio State a run, and USC's better than we think. I mean, yeah, I think getting a win in South Bend is something you really need to do. So I'll probably put that one.
It's going to be a tough game. I listened to their summer school episode with Bud Elliott, Tim O'Malley from Irish Insider.
Yeah.
New quarterback, C.J. Carr, is probably going to be the guy to take over for Riley Leonard, but not to make this a Notre Dame podcast. Really good offensive line again. The running backs are back. Their receivers project to be decent, but they probably only need to be decent. Defensively, they bring a lot of guys back outside of the interior of their defensive line, and a couple guys gone at the safety spot. They could be really dangerous again, and playing them in their building, I think, is going to be a big challenge.
Yeah, for sure. We got a kind of long email from Dylan. He had some subtopics. We might use that for future shows, but I'll read his question. It's like 4 paragraphs, but I know this is over the moon stuff. It's the off season though, but as fans, I think when it was first announced USC would joining the Big Ten, our minds instantly went towards matchups like playing Ohio State and Michigan in the regular season and not just the Rose Bowl. We got a glimpse of that last season having to travel to the Big House. You could potentially talk some about the impact of one of these games happening for the first time at the Coliseum since joining the conference, with Michigan coming to LA in week 7. I know Penn State came last year, but it's not Michigan or Ohio State level to me. Okay. What do you expect the atmosphere to be like at this game, and where do you see each team being at this point in the season? I guess you could reference the 35-3 drubbing of Ohio State at the Coliseum in 2008 for comparison for the atmosphere. I believe we have a real shot to be undefeated at that point. Not sure about Michigan. I can imagine Michigan fans in abundance for this game for sure. When the future Big Ten schedules were announced, I know a lot of fans' eyes were drawn to this Michigan home game in year 2 more than any other, including myself, as I am choosing this game for my annual one home game of the year I travel to from New Mexico. So that's Dylan in Albuquerque.
Oh, thanks for the email, Dylan. I just remember last year there was a really big contingent of Penn State fans at that game, and I know Michigan fans, they're always really loud at the Galen Center. I guess not always. They were really loud at the Galen Center when Michigan played USC this year. So I imagine the Michigan presence in the Coliseum will be pretty good. But if USC is undefeated, if they're able to beat Illinois on the road the week before, the USC fans will definitely be out in full force. Maybe part of the Penn State game being more of a Penn State crowd was because USC, I think they had lost to Michigan at that point. Did they have 2 losses yet? I don't totally remember, but they weren't undefeated against Penn State. So the environment, I think, is going to be really good regardless of how both teams are doing. And then just looking at Michigan's schedule, they probably will be undefeated if they can beat Oklahoma on the road. They start with New Mexico at home, then at Oklahoma, Central Michigan, at Nebraska, Wisconsin, and then USC. The Illinois game is the tougher of the toughest game for either team, but both schedules aren't really that challenging before that game. So yeah, there's certainly a world where both teams are undefeated, and that would be phenomenal. I think the atmosphere for that would be second to none, and even if both teams aren't, I still think it's going to be a really good atmosphere.
No, I agree, and I think on the USC side, it's really going to depend on the showing. Last year there was just some really disappointing, especially road performances, and if fans are kind of turned off, like if USC lays an egg at Illinois or maybe loses it, trips up a game earlier than that.
And USC has a bye before this game too. They play at Illinois, bye, then Michigan.
Yeah. So I feel like USC needs to sort of be playing well. The offseason is great to win, and they're doing a really good job winning the offseason, hiring that personnel staff, getting the top recruiting class and all of that. But you got to win on Saturdays, and I think that's where the focus is going to be. So if they're doing well, and I'm not saying you have to beat like Illinois and they have to be undefeated, but it's, if they look like, hey, this team can really be legit, man, that was a really tough. Luke Altmaier threw a touchdown pass in the last seconds and beat USC, but man, they gave them a ranked team on the road, all they could handle. I think there'll still be some excitement going into the Michigan game, but if there's like a 2-loss team at that point, not competitive in their road game in the Big Ten again, I think there's going to be some what's going on here. So, but it should be really good. But I think for USC, it could be like great if they're playing well. I think if USC's playing well, it'll be a lot better.
And without diving too deep into Michigan's offseason, it looks similar to last year for them, where they have to get better quarterback play. The quarterback play won't be as bad, but Mikey Keene, Bryce Underwood, regardless of who it is, it's a new guy. Mikey Keene, he doesn't make a lot of mistakes, but he's not that plus quarterback that you think maybe a Michigan would have. That is Underwood, but he would be a true freshman, and we all know how hard it is for true freshmen to play at the highest level at that position. Reading some of the Michigan site stuff, they really like the running game for the Wolverines. They don't have those 2 running backs last season who gave USC all that trouble, but they have some newer guys who people are high on. And then defensively, they lose some guys, but they still project to be pretty good defensively. So I just think USC was so good at home last season for the most part. Like, they had the Penn State loss, they had the Notre Dame loss. Defensively, they gave up a lot of points in those games.
Yeah.
And they had some turnovers in those games on the offensive side, but they were really competitive at home. And I think that's going to carry over to this upcoming season, where Michigan is a tough game at home, of course, and you have Iowa, which I think might be a tough game at home. Outside of that, I see USC cleaning up at home, where I guess the UCLA game could be challenging because it's been the away team to win that game the last couple of years, but USC should really beat UCLA at home, and Northwestern and Michigan State. I anticipate USC to be really good at home this upcoming season, and I don't know if Iowa or Michigan, for as talented as they are, they're not going to be pushovers, but it's not Notre Dame, it's not Penn State from last season. I think USC realistically could go undefeated at home.
All right. We had a couple comments in the chat, or questions in the chat, and then we'll get out of here. Eric, are Bowden and Company going to close the deal on Talanoa? Was it Lee this season? Ely this weekend?
I don't have any inside information, but I think yes. I imagine that he will visit, and then I could see a commitment coming after this weekend, maybe even during the weekend. Who knows? But at this point, it would surprise me if he didn't pick USC, which we talked a lot about the recruiting earlier, Ryan. a year ago, he looked like he was locked and loaded going to Oregon. That was an Oregon Duck. So that is another reason USC deserves some credit. They've put in a lot of work with him, and I think he's going to commit to USC.
And we'll give people a little background who that is.
Oh, sure. He's a 4-star linebacker. He played at Orange Lutheran in Orange County for the past 3 years. He transferred to Kahuku for his senior season, so he's going to be playing in Hawaii this upcoming season. But the linebacker that USC needs, the Xavier Griffin replacement, whatever you want to call it, he is a star-studded linebacker, a guy who projects to be an impact player, someone who could be a huge boost to this class, and I think they're going to get him.
Yeah, great high school up there. The Rock, Dwayne Johnson, I believe, went there.
Wow.
Yeah, and I go there for the Polynesian Bowl every year. The shrimp trucks are just down the street. Oh, so good. Those things, I love those shrimp trucks. Those are amazing. We got one last one. Eddie, he has a question regarding the schedule. Is it hard or soft?
Depends who you ask. I think if I had to pick one way, I'd say soft, but it's not really soft. It's, I think, easier than last season, but not by a ton. The beginning is easy. Let's make no mistake about it. Where Missouri State, Georgia Southern, at Purdue with all that turnover, home against Michigan State, and then that middle section gets a lot more tricky where there's some bye weeks thrown in, which is great, but at Illinois, Michigan at home, at Notre Dame, at Nebraska, that's 4 tough games right in a row. Follow that up with 2, I don't want to say easy games. Northwestern's an easy game, I think, but then Iowa, we don't really know exactly what their offense is going to look like. They're saying all the right things. They brought in some guys, but I'm not believing in that offense until I see it. So 2 potentially easy games, and then it ends at Oregon, UCLA. So I'd say easy start, but not an easy schedule by any means. But easier than last year. So I don't know if you have to pick soft or hard. I don't know. Am I wrong to say soft because last year's I feel like was harder? It's not a soft schedule. I don't know.
I didn't think last year was that hard either, but it was okay. They should have done better than they did.
Yeah, let me just look. Last year,
is there who ranks those things? Where was it ranked?
Strength of schedule. I'd have to look.
Yeah.
But at Michigan, Penn State.
Michigan was
actually,
down.
You're
Michigan
right.
was down.
I don't know why I'm saying this year.
Penn State was playoff team, the semifinal team. Notre Dame, but both those games were at home.
I guess they just made it harder.
I think they made it harder by losing to Maryland and Minnesota and
Washington.
All that stuff. Washington, a lot of not so good. I wasn't sure they need to get a Big Ten road win. The first game is Purdue.
Yeah,
right?
There you go.
You have to get that win, right? The UCLA game's not going to count. Okay, so I was thinking we were flying to Chicago, which I was like, oh, there's 3 games in Chicago. But Indianapolis is 65 miles away. Chicago is 140 miles.
Indy, please.
So we got to fly, so we don't want to have a 3-hour, 2-hour drive or whatever. So I guess we'll go to Indy. So, and I don't think there's a lot of direct flights LA to Indy, so it's a little bit different. And then
getting to Indy is tough.
How about Illinois? Where that one? Let me see. Where did you get to that? What airport is University of Illinois? There's a Champaign-Urbana airport. I don't know how where you fly into that. Maybe it's Chicago, but that might be further. I'm not sure.
I don't think it's particularly close to Chicago.
Yeah, I don't know. So there's gonna be some tough ones. I was thinking we'd have 3 Chicago trips, but maybe not.
Welcome to the Big Ten.
Willard Airport. Maybe there's I don't know. Well, whatever. If anyone knows in the chat, let me know. But I was hoping to just fly to Chicago, and maybe not. All right, cool. Well, I think that's going to wrap things up. Jeff says O'Hare, rent a car. Okay, 2-hour drive. All right, we might have to do that. Yeah, we could do the Theory Bar again, like we did. Yeah. I guess that's very similar to Notre Dame. We don't fly anywhere. We just fly to Chicago because it's Chicago, and do the 2-hour drive. So we'll probably do the same thing for Illinois, and then for Purdue, I guess we'll have to go to Indianapolis. So we need to find a bar in Indy for our Friday night meetup. But I think we'll have 2 theory bars in Chicago because we had a great time there 2 years ago for the Notre Dame game. Like, so many people showed up. So we'll get back with that one. All right. Any last words from you, Connor?
No, looking forward to those road trips, and we're going to have a conversation with Jade Abasiri coming up, so look out for that on our YouTube channel.
Yeah, we're not doing this live, but Jade Abasiri, we're going to talk to him really soon, and then hopefully it'll be up tonight or tomorrow. Better go check it out. But we appreciate everyone tuning in live on YouTube or Facebook, or if you're watching the replay on either one of those video platforms over at uscfootball.com. Remember, 60% off if you want to sign up and get a VIP membership. You will not regret it. And if you're listening anywhere you get your podcast, we love coming into your ears. However, if you're going for a jog or in the car, wherever you're doing, if you're letting your wife hear it and then she wants to go buy meatball sandwiches from Trader Joe's, we love that too. But thanks to everyone for tuning in. Hope you enjoyed the show, and we will talk to you next time.